Hello, and welcome back to the Daily English Podcast. I'm David, your host today.
And I'm Emily, your co-host. Thanks for joining us for another episode. It's so good to have you here.
Absolutely. And Emily, have you ever found yourself forgetting a word you just learned? Maybe you studied it yesterday, and then poof, it's gone the next day.
Oh, totally. That happens to me all the time, especially when I'm learning a new language. It's like the words just disappear into thin air.
Exactly. And I think a lot of our listeners can relate to that. So today's episode is all about a big question. Why is it difficult to remember vocabulary?
That's right. If you've ever wondered why some words just won't stick in your memory, or why you keep forgetting the same words over and over, you're not alone.
We're going to talk about why this happens, share our own stories, give you tips to help you remember more, and maybe even challenge you with a few fun activities along the way.
Plus, we'll break things down with simple, clear explanations, so you can really understand how memory works when it comes to vocabulary.
So, if you want to learn English in a fun, friendly way and improve your vocabulary memory, you're in the right place.
Let's jump in.
So, Emily, before we dive deep, let's share our own experiences with remembering vocabulary. I remember when I started learning Spanish, I was so excited. But honestly, after a week, I realized I had forgotten half the words I'd learned. It was frustrating.
I totally get that. When I was studying French, I'd write down new words in my notebook, but when I tried to use them in a conversation, it was like, wait, how do you say window again? Elephenter? I get so nervous and just forget everything.
Yeah, I think feeling nervous makes it even harder to remember words. Or sometimes, I just remember the first letter and nothing else. Like, ugh, it starts with an M, but what was the word?
Exactly. And I think this is something that happens to everybody, no matter what language you're learning. It's totally normal, but it can be kind of discouraging, right?
Absolutely. But, understanding why it's difficult to remember vocabulary can actually help us learn better. So let's break it down. What do we mean by vocabulary?
Great question. Vocabulary means all the words you know and use in a language. So if you know the word apple and the word computer, those are part of your English vocabulary.
Right. And the bigger your vocabulary, the easier it is to understand and communicate in English. But of course, remembering all those words is the tricky part.
So let's talk about some reasons why it can be difficult to remember vocabulary. I think the first one is just that there are so many words. English has hundreds of thousands of words.
Yeah, I read somewhere that the Oxford English Dictionary has over 170,000 words that are currently used, and even more if you count old words.
Wow, that's a lot. So if you feel like you're forgetting words, remember, it's normal. Nobody knows all the words, not even native speakers.
Exactly. So let's break down some of the main reasons vocabulary is hard to remember. Number 1, there's just a huge amount to learn.
Number 2, words can be very similar. For example, affect and effect, or borrow and lend. Sometimes I mix them up, even now.
Yeah, or words that look the same but mean different things. Like the word bat, it can be an animal or something you use in baseball.
Exactly. That's called a homonym. It can be confusing for learners.
Another reason is that some words just don't exist in your language. Like when I tried to learn the word serendipity in English, there was no direct translation in my first language. So it was hard to remember.
Yes. And then there are words with strange or irregular spellings. Like kernel, it sounds completely different from how it's written.
Absolutely. And don't forget pronunciation. Sometimes you know a word when you see it, but you forget how to say it.
Or you know how to say it, but you forget what it means. That happens to me with slang words. I hear them in movies, but then I forget the meaning.
Totally. And let's be honest, if you don't use a word often, it's easy to forget it. Use it or lose it, as the saying goes.
That's so true. Our brains need to see or use a word many times before it really sticks.
Let's dive into that idea for a second. Imagine you're at a party and you meet 10 new people. If you only say their names once, do you remember all of them the next day?
Ha! Honestly, I usually forget most of the names. Maybe I remember one or two.
Exactly. It's the same with vocabulary. If you see a word just one time in a textbook, your brain probably won't remember it. But if you see it many times in a book, on TV, in conversation, then it starts to become sticky.
I love that image, sticky words. So, words become sticky when you use them over and over.
Right. And another thing that makes vocabulary hard is stress or pressure. If you're nervous during a conversation, your brain sometimes just goes blank.
Yes, I get that. Sometimes, when I'm in front of a group, I forget even simple words. Like, what's the word for? Chair. It's embarrassing, but it happens.
Totally normal. So let's talk about some misconceptions. I think a lot of learners believe you just have to memorize a vocabulary list, and then you'll remember everything.
Yes, but actually, memorizing lists isn't always the best way. If you just memorize without using the words, you might forget them quickly.
Exactly. It's like trying to remember a phone number you never call. If you don't use it, you lose it.
So, what are some better ways to remember vocabulary, David?
Great question. One tip is to use new words in real-life situations. For example, if you learn the word delicious, try to use it when you eat something tasty. Like, this pizza is delicious.
I like that. Or you can write a short story using your new words. It doesn't have to be long, just a few sentences. The more you use the words, the better you remember them.
Absolutely. Another idea is to connect the new word to something you already know. For example, if you learn the word cat, maybe you picture your neighbor's cat or a famous cartoon cat.
Oh, like Garfield. He's my favorite cartoon cat. So, making connections in your mind can help the words stick.
Exactly. And let's not forget about repetition. Seeing a word again and again helps a lot. That's why apps like Duolingo or Anki use spaced repetition. They show you words at different times so your brain can remember them better.
That's a great point. And I think practicing with a friend is really helpful too. When I was learning French, I sent my friend a message every day using my new vocabulary. It made it more fun, and I remembered more words.
That's awesome. And speaking about fun, did you know that if you add emotion or personal meaning to a word, you remember it better?
Really? How does that work?
Well, our brains are really good at remembering things that are important or emotional. So if you learn the word surprise and you think about your last birthday party, when your friends surprised you, that memory helps the word stick.
I love that. Listeners, think about your favorite birthday memory. What words could you connect to that feeling? Maybe excited, happy, or cake?
Exactly. So let's do a quick challenge. Pick one word you learned recently. Now, close your eyes for a second, unless you're driving, and imagine a scene with that word. What do you see, hear, smell, or feel?
That's a great exercise, David. Let's give everyone a few seconds to try it.
Pause, okay. Did you do it? Hopefully, that word feels a little more sticky now.
So, to sum up, remembering vocabulary is hard for lots of reasons. There are so many words, some are similar, some are different from your language, and sometimes you just forget them under stress.
But there are lots of ways to make it easier, like using words in real life, connecting them to personal memories, practicing with friends, and using technology.
And don't forget, making mistakes is part of learning. Actually, mistakes help us remember better sometimes because we learn from them.
That's so true. I remember once I confused the words angry and hungry in Spanish. I told my friend, am very angry when I meant to say am very hungry. We laughed so much. I never forgot the difference after that.
That's hilarious. I did something similar with embarazada in Spanish. It looks like embarrassed, but it actually means pregnant. I was telling someone I was embarrassed, and they looked so confused.
Language is full of funny moments like that. It's all part of the journey.
So true. And speaking about journeys, let's explore a few more reasons vocabulary can be hard to remember. What about when you're tired or not paying attention?
Great point. If you're tired, stressed, or distracted, your brain just doesn't hold on to new information as well. That's why studying when you're fresh is best.
And sometimes the way we learn words isn't helpful. If you just copy a list, but don't use the words, they usually don't stick.
Exactly. Some people think you have to learn 50 words a day. But actually, learning fewer words and practicing them is much better.
Quality over quantity, right?
Right. And let's talk about cultural differences. In some cultures, people focus a lot on writing and grammar, but don't practice speaking. So they might recognize a word on paper, but can't remember it in conversation.
That's true. I had a friend from Japan who could read English really well, but had trouble remembering words when talking. She said in school, they mostly practiced reading and writing.
Yes, and in some cultures, people are afraid of making mistakes. That fear can stop you from practicing, and then you don't remember the words as well.
So, listeners, don't be afraid to use your new words, even if you make mistakes. That's how you learn.
Absolutely. And hey, have you ever tried talking to yourself in English? I know it sounds funny, but it really helps.
Yes. I do that when I'm alone, like describing what I'm doing. I'm making coffee. The coffee smells good. It helps the words become part of my everyday life.
Exactly. Or you can label things around your house with sticky notes, door, mirror, fridge. That way you see the word every day.
I love that tip. And if you watch movies or TV shows in English, listen for the words you're learning. It's really exciting when you hear a word you know.
Totally. And singing songs in English is another fun way. Music helps us remember words because of the rhythm and emotion.
I still remember the lyrics to my favorite English song from high school, even though I haven't heard it in years.
See? Music is powerful. So, let's recap some of the subtopics we've covered so far. Ready, Emily?
Ready. We talked about the huge number of words in English, similar words and homonyms, words that don't exist in your language, stress and pressure, learning methods, repetition, using emotion, personal connections, cultural differences, and making mistakes.
And we gave tips like using words in real life, practicing with friends, spaced repetition, labeling things, talking to yourself, using music and movies, and focusing on quality, not just quantity.
That's a lot. Hopefully, listeners, you can find a tip or two that works for you.
Let's challenge our listeners with a quick activity. Think of a new word you learned this week. Can you use it in a funny sentence or make a picture in your mind with that word? Try it now.
Or share your sentence with a friend or even with us online. We love hearing from you.
Before we finish, let's do our vocabulary highlight. Emily, want to start us off?
Sure. The first word is sticky. We used it to describe a word that's easy to remember. For example, after I practiced coffee every day, it became a sticky word for me.
Great one. Next up, homonym. A homonym is a word that is spelled and pronounced the same as another word but has a different meaning. Like bat, it can be an animal or a baseball bat.
Our third word is spaced repetition. This is a learning method where you review words at different times to help your memory. Apps like Anki use this method.
Next, label. As a verb, to label means to put a name on something. For example, you can label things in your house to help remember their English names.
Another is personal connection. This means connecting a word to your own life or feelings. It helps you remember better.
And finally, use it or lose it. This is a popular saying in English. It means if you don't use your skills or knowledge, you'll forget them.
Let's give examples for each. For sticky, for example, the word cat is sticky for me because I love cats.
For homonym, you could say the word Bank is a homonym. It can mean the side of a river or a place for money.
For spaced repetition, I use spaced repetition to remember new words every day.
And for label, I labeled my fridge with the word fridge to help me remember.
For personal connection, I remember the word sun because I love sunny days.
And use it or lose it. If I don't speak English, I forget the words. Use it or lose it.
Let's talk about the origins of a couple of these. The word label comes from Old French and originally meant a small strip of cloth. Now, it means any tag or name you put on something.
That's interesting. And homonym comes from Greek. Homo means same and nym means name, so same name.
Very cool. And spaced repetition is a modern learning technique that's now famous because of language learning apps.
Let's finish up with a quick review. Emily, what's one thing you want our listeners to remember from today?
I want everyone to remember that forgetting words is normal. It happens to all of us. The important thing is to keep practicing and find fun ways to make words sticky for you.
Yes, and don't be afraid of mistakes. Every mistake is a chance to learn. Use your new words in real life, share them with friends, and be patient with yourself.
And remember, learning a language is a journey. Sometimes it's hard, but it's also full of little victories. Celebrate every new word you remember.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for listening to the Daily English Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend or leave us a message. We love hearing your stories.
And don't forget to practice your new vocabulary today. Maybe try using one of our tips and see how it works for you.
We'll be back soon with another episode. Until then, keep learning, keep smiling, and remember, mistakes are welcome here.
Goodbye, everyone. Have a wonderful day and happy learning.